Life Beyond Labels is a Quiet Loud Studios production, proudly featured on Sports E Media. Discover more at quietloudstudios.com. Background music created by Yo Crane. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Season 2 of the Life Beyond Labels podcast. This is going to be a really fun episode. We have Stephen Whitsitt back with us, who was on the 4th episode of Season 2. But today we're going to be doing a little bit of a reverse interview. We got to know a little bit about Stephen's story. Go ahead and listen to that episode if you haven't already. But Stephen and I actually met on campus when he was taking photos for graduates, and I happened to be graduating from my master's program. We sparked up a conversation just about life and his start to photography and my journey through education. And since then, I've just developed a really cool friendship and was really lucky to have him on Life Beyond Labels. But he has been fortunate, or has been really sweet, to come back and kind of do another episode with us and kind of do a reverse interview and have me answer a few questions after we had a really great conversation the last time. So welcome back, Stephen. I'm so glad you're back.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here. So I'm going to just take over.
Yeah,
and I'm
so
going
we're swapping hosts.
and I'm going to ask you questions. And it's hard because I wanted to ask my own questions. Like the one thing I did this morning was I went and I re-listened to the commencement address. And then it was really, really tempting to go and listen to all the different podcasts that you've been on. But I thought, no, I want this to be just my questions. So I just kind of like jotted down some things that popped into my mind. So, so I hope you're prepared.
Yes. No, thank you.
So one of the first questions that I have, growing up, was the attraction with sports, was it about competition, or was it about being a part of a team and the camaraderie of being on a team? That's one of the things that I'm very curious about.
Oh, I think it was both. I've always been pretty competitive, having two brothers, one
Mm-hmm.
being a twin and my older brother 7 years older. And so competition was always fun for us. And we were always doing sports, playing games. I grew up in a sports family. My dad has always worked in sports. We always had them on. So I feel like I was just drawn to that. And then I think my love to stay in sports came from, I guess, a mix of both. But I guess for me, it was more competition. Like I loved being on a team. And I think that's why I loved softball and why I chose softball, because I think softball is just such a cool dynamic sport in that way of being on a team and needing each other and just having a lot of variety in what you're doing in a single game. But I've always been pretty competitive, and sports was an outlet for that for me. Also, because I don't think on a regular basis I appear to come across as competitive, but I definitely am when it comes to sports or a competition or athletics.
Okay. Well, I think that one of the things that's interesting about softball and about baseball is that it's a perfect combination of both individual accomplishment. When you're up there batting, it's just you and the pitch coming at you. But when you're out in the field, you're a part of a team, and you have to sort of think about, okay, what's the thing that I need to do for the team to be successful. And I think that
Yeah.
that speaks to kind of finding a balance in ourselves, as well. If you can sort of like embrace that and be like, okay, I can do both things.
100%. It's cool and interesting to think about, right? You're competing with your teammates and you're also competing against your teammates in fighting for a roster spot. And
Hmm.
so it really challenges you to be a team first person while controlling what you can control to make sure you're the best version of yourself, but not letting that outweigh like your care and the energy that you bring to your team and your teammates. Because that line gets really blurry. And so I definitely even see it as kind of a theme, whether it's in business, you're trying to get a promotion and you're working with your team members, but you're also really wanting your own advancement, or just other areas where you're competing with people and you're also competing against them at the same time. I think I loved softball in that sense too, of I could go spend 3 hours on a field by myself and
Mm.
work at it, and I loved it. And I think even at times when I was really struggling or I was starting to get weighed down by the intensity or just being tired from just the long days and whatever that might look like, I would always ask myself if I do I still love going and spending 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever, on a field by myself, playing catch and hitting a ball off a tee? And the answer was always yes. And so that's what kept me coming back is I love the game. So whatever is maybe going to entice me to come out of the game or leave the game is external. And I would kind of check on the internal and be like, I still love it so much. So I'm not going to let outside factors affect me leaving this game that I love. But it is a really cool mix of individual and team element. I actually, when I was growing up, I played on a travel team that was based out of Ohio and I lived in Illinois, and it like pulled girls from the Midwest. And so a lot of the winter time was like you and up to you to get your training in, to get your hitting, your defense. And then we would fly in for these like weekends and we would spend the full weekend doing team bonding and team building and full drills and team plays and all that stuff. But it was really interesting. It like operated like you were responsible for your own training throughout the entirety of the off season, but then we would fly together and be together for the summers and then some of those training weekends.
Oh, that's great. That's great. One of the things that you just said just brought back a memory. Um, I worked in a photography studio while I was in college and as an assistant. And the photographer that I worked for, his name is Bill Hendricks. I might have mentioned him even in our first interview, but he just had this ability of drawing people to him that we loved him, we loved working there, and we loved each other. And there was a young man who came in. I had been working there for several months, and a young man that came in, and I remember him saying on the morning of this photo shoot, "Oh, geez, I got to make sure I do well today because I realize I'm competing against each of you for being able to work here again." And I was like, "Whoa, stop! We're here together."
Mhm.
And like even then, I was able to articulate to him, I feel like that I'm going to get exactly the things that I'm supposed to get, and the things that I'm not supposed to get, I'm just not going to. And so it's like you and I do not have to be adversarial. We don't have to be competitive. Let's work together and all of that. At the end of that day, he came to me and was like, "Oh man, thank you so much for saying that to me." And like it's funny at that point in my life, that was just it was such a nascent idea in me, but I still believe that. Even when I'm
Yeah.
even when I'm struggling and I haven't had any work for a while, it's like I know that I'm going to get exactly the things that I'm supposed to get, both for my personal growth and to keep me sustained. And I it just that memory just blasted into my head as soon as
I
you
love
said that.
that. No, thank you for sharing. You just made me think of my freshman year roommate. It was like such
Mhm,
a similar situation of she and I were paired to room together for our freshman year and we were both competing for an outfield spot. We were the
mhm,
only two freshmen coming in outfielders. And there was kind of like a single spot to be competing for. And, like, you would have thought that we would have been a little bit on edge or whatever. Like, we became best friends. We went to the
mhm.
field together. We talked about how we would share the outfield together, like, through kind of the coming years, and we just, like, wanted the best for each other, and it was the coolest energy, even though, like, in every scenario, we probably should have been competing with each other, like, we wanted the best for each other. Like, I wanted her to succeed, and she wanted me to succeed, and whoever got a spot, and it was gonna work itself out over time, but it was really fun to kind of dream of that together instead of against each other. So I think that's really I agree with you. I think I kind of operate the same way of if it's meant to be, I'm gonna do everything within my control to make it happen. And if it doesn't happen, then I'll keep trying and pivot, but it wasn't meant to be if I gave it everything that I could.
Well, and that kinda speaks to the whole idea of like putting value judgment on things as far as and we live in a culture where success and failure are huge words and things like that. But it's like, if I think that I failed at something, but I've learned from it, is it actually a failure? If I didn't
Hmm.
get the thing that I wanted and it forces me to work harder to get the next thing that comes along, is that really a failure? And so I just kind of, and obviously I'm a work in progress on this, but I think that it's that I just need to be out of the business of deciding that something is one way or the other. Because
Yeah.
like when I think about you and your whole story, it's like, was the accident that happened to you that took away your career, was that like a terrible thing, or was it an opportunity that launched you into something where you're able to be of amazing service to the people that you interact with? In that way, it was, how can you say
Hmm.
that it like, it's not for me to say one way or the other if it's a tragedy or whatever, but it's like, well, no, everything that is a tragedy, if we grow from it, then is it really? Or maybe I should just quit
Yeah.
placing value judgments on it.
No, yeah. It's funny. I was giving a speech a couple months ago, and there was a student that came up and asked if you could go back and change it now, given the way it's worked out, would you change anything? And the immediate answer was no. And I think about, I guess, like the difference between now being able to see it in hindsight and going, I learned from it. I'm actually really glad that it happened. Try as hard as it was, like it worked out so beautifully. But then I also remember in the moment, in those initial 20 months that I didn't see anything come from it, that's where like the growth and the message came from,
Mhm.
because there was no tangible outcome. And yet, like the real journey of it was like finding joy and peace and purpose, even though there was like no big speech or nothing yet. But then also being like, I want to make this mean something. I want to use it for something. I want to turn it into something good. Um, but like those different phases. So when somebody goes through something, like those first, however long it takes to even like be in that process of weeks, months, years before you see any sort of inclination that it might have been something that you look back on and go, I'm actually glad that led to something. We don't see it for a while either. So like
Exactly.
holding out during that time.
So I wanna go back to my questions.
Yeah.
That was all just the first question.
We
So
said this would happen.
so I wanted to ask you, about who your early heroes were.
Oh, my mom
Mhm.
is my best friend in the whole world.
Oh,
She is my hero for so many reasons. She is the person that like, she's just the most safe person in my whole life, and I feel like I'd go to her with conversations and, like, everything that I've learned in perspective and strength and also, um, compassion, like, there's this balance of strength and compassion, like, my mom has just modeled so much for me, and everything that I try to strive to be, like, a lot of it comes from my mom. And I would say, like, my whole family, like, both my dad was really helpful in making me strong and teaching me things like that too. My grandmother,
mhm.
my grandmom was definitely one of my early heroes as well. She also just like any time that I needed a call or I was confused about something or needed to just be grounded, like she was so consistent and I could call her and she was just a steadiness of support. Um, yeah, I feel really my family, like my whole family. But if I had to say the first person that comes to mind is just my mom,
Okay.
and she just yeah, she's just amazing, and, like, the more I grow up, just the more I'm so grateful for even being young and how she, like, knew how to push us, but also, like, safety net, so even like, she would keep us accountable to our goals. Both my parents, very good at, like, keeping us accountable. If we start something, we finish it, but then also just, like, being open for conversation of when we were growing up, we were allowed to have, like, 1 day in a semester that was this was before, like, mental health days were, like, kind of a thing or talked about. And she
Mhm.
was like, you get 1 day, no questions asked, but it's just one. And so we had to use it very carefully because we only got one. It wasn't like an unlimited supply. But I remember like there were times where I was really struggling and I like you almost too at the beginning of the day then ask yourself, is this a day I really need to use it or is this a day that
Mm.
I can like power through? And it's just like those little things that she did just like instilled such a good sense of even myself in like decision making and processing things and thinking before I speak and thinking about how things are going to land for other people, thinking about everyone in the room, modeling how I show up with my energy, just I that's such a good question.
Mm. Anybody from outside of the family that was an early hero?
Oh, yeah. Um, Early hero. I guess I just have to think a little bit. I've had some really good coaches. One of my coaches I have a few coaches that I would say Coach Bob. His name was Coach Bob, and I was in, like, middle school, and he I don't even think he knows this. We haven't caught up in a while, but he was very much a very encouraging, like, steady presence of
Mhm.
coaching, during a time that I was, like there's just a lot going on, like, personally and at home and all these different things, and he was just so supportive and so, like, always checking in, and I think he kept me in softball during a time that I was, like, struggling with it, and honestly is probably one of the reasons that I kept going with it. I have a couple coaches like that,
Mhm.
Coach Russ, Coach Mark, a couple of coaches where I probably wouldn't have continued to play without them and wouldn't have believed in myself without them. And I think so much has come from me being able to stay in softball and how much I've learned about myself. And so I look back on them and when I was dealing with a lot in like personal life, through a game, they were just able to like really be there for me in such a cool way. So I would say a
Okay.
couple coaches. Yeah.
Okay. Um, Let me look on my list here. Um, I did wanna ask you on just reflect on being a twin, and part of why I wanted to ask about that, my oldest sister, Susan, has twin girls, Allison and Adrian, and, they're all grown up now and married and children of their own, and they live it's interesting, they live very close to each other. One lives in San Francisco, the other in Oakland,
Oh, that's awesome.
and their children get to grow up together and see each other really frequently and all that. But it's always even just as their uncle, it's always been like an interesting dynamic in our family that there's a set of twins, not to the detriment of all the other kids, but it's just been really interesting watching them grow. So tell me about being a
Yeah.
twin.
I love being a twin. Being a twin is like one of the best gifts of my whole life. You go through these life milestones, whether it's elementary school or middle school or high school or sports or whatever it is, and it's like you always have somebody with you. Like
Mhm.
you have somebody going through these things and you're never alone going through these like life milestones. And even him and I, we don't live near each other now, but we'll even get on the phone. And the other day he called me and was like, "Do you remember so and so? I can't remember his last name." We were kind of reminiscing on a time on the bus. Something happened on a bus route, and we're both able to pull it and then talk about it. And so to be able to share those memories from such core times of life is the coolest experience ever. And yet, I think with him having interests in running and theater and, him being a guy, just me being kind of with my girlfriends and doing softball, we had different interests and different friend groups, and so we didn't really get joined together, like, we had our own individual identities, we didn't have the same classes in elementary school, and so we were able to blend experiences together and then also, like, complement one another. Like, I look back at my high school experience, and so much of the fun of it came from going to his events and watching
Mhm.
him sing and getting to know his friends, watching him perform, and that to me is so cool, like, you just feel like there's somebody there supporting you, And I think going back, like my parents did an amazing job of like really fostering friendship between my siblings and I. Same with my older brother. Like he really set a tone of just, there was just zero tolerance for like not being like there for your siblings and like being a team. And so my twin and I really had that. And whether it was playing games or just in general, like he would call me on the way home from school just to like ask how my day was, or we would be in school and we would just like stop for a second and be like, how's your day going? What's up? And just like having that person with you for so much of life growing up and like feels like they have a glimpse into what you experience is the coolest thing ever.
Great answer. Very, very cool. Um, so now still talking about childhood and up until university. Talk to me about how you saw your identity.
Mm. Yeah.
Well,
I
and let me
was,
ask part B at the same time, and maybe both of them will meld together. Because you is the podcast is called Life Beyond Labels. Is like if can you differentiate between a label and an identity? And because when we met, one of the things that struck me was that you talked about how you had given yourself certain labels and then that was taken from you, um, or removed from your whatever the most appropriate way of saying
yeah.
that is. So prior to that, what was your identity? What were your labels?
My identity was definitely that I like to look back and think that I was a really kind person always. Like when I speak to people from just growing up in general, like I was very consistently kind, but I was also I was a really like outgoing kid very young. And then once I reached like 10, 11, I was really shy. The
Hmm.
fact that I'm public speaking is wild because I was incredibly quiet, shy, anxious, like self-conscious. Um, and I think it's interesting because I had this, like, very just, like, kind, quiet identity of just really being nice, and I didn't have a lot of friends, I guess, and not I guess just more so because I decided to, like, really outlet a lot of my time and focus into softball or into, like, doing things, and so my labels growing up were very much softball player, but also I did a lot and tried to balance once I got to high school. So it's interesting. My college experience, I think one of the reasons I was able to reflect on it so deeply and honestly why it maybe hurt more was because I had a completely paralleled experience in high school. I had 3 concussions back to back when I was in high school. And so like very similarly, I wrote my college essay to get into NC State about having head injuries and getting over them. And so it was so ironic that and at NC State, like, this ends up happening completely the same. And so my labels were kind of the same. It was softball player. I was really locked in. Like, everyone knew I was an athlete. Everybody knew that I was, like, going to the gym all the time. I was flying to places all over the country just for practice. I would drive 6 hours to practice with this big national team. Like, it was that was very much part of my identity or part of my labels. But I also, like, I helped start a nonprofit chapter, and I volunteered all the time, and I worked really hard in school, and so I had this other balanced identity of, just like the nonprofit and the volunteer work that was really close to my heart. I was very, passionate about education, so I did a
Hmm.
lot of teaching. I was Miss Kelsey for a long time in
Hmm.
high school as well. Um,
And a question that just popped into my head is: Did you were there external labels that people put onto you based on their like perception and quick judgment, like, oh, well, she's this, so therefore that.
yeah, I mean, I guess I would look back too and say, like, I wasn't very I definitely leaned into being too quiet or too shy because I had people in middle school or high school tell me I was too quiet or too shy. I got a lot of, like, "You're too nice." A lot in an interesting way, right? Like, I it almost feels weird to be told, like, "You're too nice," and looking back, I was probably a little bit, like, passive. It's something that I have gotten stronger in, but I definitely felt self-conscious of being too shy, and that makes you even more shy because you're a little
Mhm.
nervous to, like, talk after you feel like people are anxiously, awaiting anything you're going to say because you're so quiet. And I think I wore that and struggled to like undo that. Or I just, yeah, I mean, even in softball, like I had head injuries kind of during the thick of my recruiting process. And so I had some coaches that told me that I was definitely not being realistic, wanting to go Division 1, and I like needed to be more realistic. I wasn't that good. I was weak. I was like all these other things, just a lot of like small jobs or like labels here and there that I think I was very determined to break through those.
Hmm.
And I've always been competitive in that sense of like anytime I was kind of told to be more realistic or that I was just being ridiculous by thinking that I was going to be that good, I would be like, well, why not? Why not me? Like, why couldn't I get a spot there? Why couldn't I, do this, break this record, whatever? But then when it came to personal stuff, I was so driven over here in the athletics realm. But then when it was personal, like I was so stressed about talking to anybody or making friends or being social or getting up in front of a room, like my heart would just beat out of my chest. And I just like always thought everyone was judging me poorly and whatever that looked like. So it's kind of this like dichotomy, I guess, of who I was
Mm.
in different places. I don't know if that answers your question.
I think so. What resonated with me was anybody. I have a very, very dear friend who has multiple times told me that, Steve, you're too sensitive.
Mm.
And that just rubs me the wrong way because it's like, okay, that is like, if someone is telling you that you're too this or too that, it doesn't really have anything to do with you. It has to do with their level of comfort or discomfort with you presenting exactly how you are. And it's like,
Mm.
I had heard this a few times from this friend, and we are still friends. This was a little bit of a rough spot in our friendship, but when he said this, I was like, no, actually, what you're saying is that my level of sensitivity is somehow beyond what you think is appropriate and what you are comfortable with.
Yeah.
So why should I change to accommodate what you need to be comfortable with? And I really pushed back on it, and it was sort of a good part of my journey because it's like, oh, well, that means that I accept myself how I am, and I don't feel like that I need to change myself to accommodate what is going to make this person. I mean, obviously, you don't want to make somebody uncomfortable, and if you say things that make somebody
Yeah.
uncomfortable and all that, but it's like this was something that's very deeply personal about me, and it was. And again, going back to what we were talking about before, I am so grateful that I had that experience because it was a realization that, oh, all this work that I've been doing on myself has actually resulted in me being able to push back and say, well, no, this is how I am. I'm not going
Hmm.
and I don't know how, like when somebody tells you, oh, Kelsey, you're just too nice. Okay, well, I'm going to go out and for 15 minutes a day, I'm going to be a jerk. Well, like,
Yeah.
how do you accommodate somebody that's giving you that judgment? That's, I guess, the interesting question.
Yeah. I think I try to be self-aware. Not, somebody told me a couple weeks ago, like, you're too empathetic. And I stop at least for a minute and I think, okay, like when they say, am I too empathetic or too nice? Like, is there something in my life that may be going like that they're seeing that I should be aware of? So I ask
Mm,
myself that, and not necessarily in a judgment way, but in a curiosity way of like, is my niceness allowing me to be pushed over? Is my niceness coming across as insincere? Is my empathy like detrimental to me feeling too much? But then as long as I can come to terms with like the amount in which I'm displaying or at least reflect on it and not in a way that appeases them, but like make sure that I'm good with myself, like you said, then I at least pocket it self-aware, but I
mhm.
don't really process that I guess in front of them because I guess I never really know what to say. Like when they say something like that, I kind of just like laugh it off or I think about it. But I've
It-
I've actually pushed back more recently of like can like, I'm just empathy, like, I'm trying to be empathetic, like, I'm not trying to be anything, I'm just that's just how because it's just how I'm, like, wired to respond. I'm not trying to be too nice or too empathetic. overly. It's just like how, I don't know,
Well,
how it
well,
is.
well, well,
Yeah.
and then how do you quantify it? How do you quantify how like okay, if a full measure of empathy is 100 and you're uncomfortable with me being 100, would you prefer I be 83? You know,
Yeah.
what a silly ridiculous thing to me. Um because it's like, well, be as empathetic as you are. The the thing that's challenging though is that means that, you know, and as a fellow empath, I get hurt a lot. You know,
Mm.
I see things and my heart gets broken. And it's like, okay, but what I've learned about a broken heart is that when your heart breaks, that it allows it to it's almost like it breaks it open and allows you to feel even more. And that's kind of why I get out of bed in the morning. So,
Oh, yeah.
okay. Um,
I'm gonna think about that, breaking
okay.
open to feel more. Because sometimes, right, like, that's so interesting that this comes at this time. Like, at times of feeling heartbroken, right, like, it doesn't just happen once, like, it happens a couple times in our life, and there's something about trying to really decide that, like, I'd rather feel deeply than feel nothing, or, like, there's times in my life where I've been in both paths of, like,
Mhm.
feeling apathy and feeling empty, and I think that scared me more than
Mhm.
feeling deeply, and so recently, a couple months ago, like, something happened that I was just, like, really sad and, like, really hurt, and I just thought at first, I was trying to do the thing of, like, "Oh, it didn't mean anything to me, it was nothing," and then I thought, "Well, what an insult to myself for trying to take on that idea when, like, it did mean something to me, and it did matter because I do feel deeply, and I do care about the things that are happening in my life, and I mean the things that I say, and so that comes with, like, feeling a little bit of a broken heart. I guess I'll take it.
Mhm.
So, I appreciate you saying that. That's very
Yeah.
relevant right now.
There's an essay, if I can find this essay that, a friend of mine wrote about being brokenhearted. I'll see if I can find it and share that with you. I think
Oh,
it would mean a
thanks.
lot.
Yeah.
Um, so I wanted to ask you very, very specifically about if you're first of all, are you comfortable talking about the event in college that
Yes.
ended your career? Because
Yes.
I I wanted to start with that as a basis point and then talk about different points along the recovery from there. So if we can talk about that. So
Yeah, let's do it.
this was during a practice.
Yes.
So
Yes, it
give me the
was
context.
yeah, it was during practice. We half of our team was base running, and then half of the team was doing fielding, and so we were just kind of running drills in that sense. I was base running, and there was a lot of conflict kinda happening with our coaches at the time. It was, like, very messy, and so basically what happened was every single person and fielder got substituted out to flip from running to fielding except for me. So I was running for, like, oh my gosh, almost an hour straight. I'm running, and then at one point, I'm on first base, and our coach hits a ball to the pitcher, so it's gonna be like a routine double play. So I'm running to second base, and I go to just slide into second base, and our shortstop, instead of making a lane, like, receiving the ball, making a lane on either side of the base path to receive the ball and throw it to first, she just came straight through the base path, and so as I was sliding into second base, she just came full momentum, full force, like, knee first, straight into my face
Hmm.
as I was sliding, and so her knee, like, basically her whole body, but, like, knee first, like, went straight into my face. Um, and honestly, it was so weird, like, I remember, like, a few seconds after that, like, I don't remember the impact, like, I remember right before and right after, my helmet flew off, my helmet was, like, off, and basically I guess I have to give some context for more detail of, like, the day, but I got up and My nobody came to see me. My coaches were like, "Good job, shortstop, like, let's move on," and I walked off the field by myself, And then our trainer saw, and she came and helped me because we had this really like steep hill to get up to the training room. And so she saw me like finally when I walked to the gate, and then she came, and I fell down. Like I tripped on the way. Like I didn't trip and fall, but I like kind of fell down to my knees like as I was walking up this hill. And I remember just like completely breaking down. Like I could just barely get up. Like my whole world was spinning. My head was just like pounding. I felt like somebody just hit a gong inside my head, and like
Mm.
everything hurt. It was just crazy. Um so that was the day of.
One quick question just for clarity.
Yeah,
Was that concussion exacerbated by the previous ones?
it was. Yes.
Okay.
So
It's
it's
like it
really
can be
crazy.
cumulative.
Yeah, so that's why it was so bad.
Mhm.
So if I had to like map out, this is where like it's so interesting because I feel like whenever I speak, like you never want to overlist how much like overlist things because then it makes
Mhm.
it overwhelming. But for a lot of contexts is I had 3 back-to-back concussions when I was like a sophomore in high school. So I dove for a ball my like freshman sophomore year. I landed really weird and my neck whipped back and forth. And then a few months later, my brother hit me in the head with the garage door. He, like,
Mhm.
opened it as I was walking, and it, like, slammed right into my head. And then a few weeks later, one of our catchers, like, ripped her helmet off, and it hit me in the side of the head, and because they were back to back, I ended up, like, having a really hard time. And then my senior year of high school, I got clotheslined at first base and had another really bad concussion, facial injury, like, had stitches, the whole thing. And so by the time I was a junior in college, like, it had already been something that, like, we look out for, kind of in my history, and so when this one happened, it can be like, the more you have, like, the worse it can be and the worse the recovery, and so that's what made it so bad.
Mhm.
And then about 8 weeks later, I had whiplash from a car accident, and so that
Oh,
combination of
dear.
just so many was what made it so awful and difficult to recover from, which is hard to explain because for some people, right, you get a concussion, you recover in 2 weeks, it's fine. Because I had had so many, that's where a lot of the damage came from and a lot of the uncertainty and why did a base running incident cause cognitive delay and speech impediment and all of these other things was because like
So
it becomes so random.
were you exhibiting those symptoms prior to the accident where you had the whiplash? Like,
Yeah.
so that's like in the timeline. Um, Go ahead and explain that.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's funny because when I think what made it so different when I had the concussions in high school, I had been through all of the physical symptoms before where
Mhm.
the lights are too bright, the noises are too loud, everything hurts, you feel nauseous, like that kind of thing. When I had this one, when I got hit, like, running the bases, I struggled pretty quickly with, like, double vision and, like, blurry vision. I struggled with, like, brain fog and confusion.
Mhm.
Um, and like, I didn't have, like, the stuttering and some of the, like, thoughts, like, that came after the car accident because that was, like, kinda second impact syndrome, but a lot of the cognitive symptoms came after the base running collision, like, I was already starting to fail my classes because I was, like, struggling to put together sentences, and when I would speak, like, I was forgetting things mid-sentence, and there was a few times where I got lost, like, I was either at campus, somebody dropped me off, or I remember once, like, I walked to the parking garage and I got lost in it for 40 minutes because I was looking for my car and it wasn't even there,
Oh,
and it was,
dear.
like, moments like that where I thought, what is happening to me? I'm 20 years old and I am so disoriented." Or they would ask me what my, like, birthday was, and a lot of the times I got it, and then sometimes I had to really think for, like, a second or 2 and then respond, and so it was those little moments where I think when I got lost a few times is where I started to get really scared of, like, what was happening, and
Mhm.
that was just after the base running collision, that wasn't
That
even,
was prior to the yeah.
prior to the car accident. Yeah, I was in recovery, and then the car accident just kind of moved it back, but I was already struggling.
But it seems that I don't wanna place any value judgment on it, but it seems like that you should have been being watched really closely in the period of time between the base collision, on base collision and the car accident. It seems like that maybe they could have given your history, they could have been a little bit more cognizant of the dangers that you were facing as a multiple concussion person. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it
I'm
does.
not trying
Yeah.
to put blame on anyone one way or the
No.
other, but it's like to me as a non-physician, it's like anytime somebody's had, multiple concussions, it would seem like, oh my gosh, we really need to keep an eye on you. Um, but you just kind of were on your own.
Well, so I had actually like made the decision to medically retire 2 weeks before the car accident. So I had already reached the conclusion that I wasn't going to be able to play, and I had only recently just been cleared to drive, and I had to drive because I had to go back to work. And at the time, I think as well, like I had different physicians, and so I think just with head injuries too, it's just so like nobody really knows. Like there's no like when you tear your ACL, like they have kind of a timeline of when they think you'll get better. There's a progression of drills to do and all of those things. And with head injuries, and then the more you have, it's like they kind of got to just go off of what you're telling them and what you're reporting. And so I was still reporting very honestly the symptoms, but you have good days and then you have really bad ones, and it fluctuates so much. And then as far as the oversight, like my physicians did a good job, but at the same time I was being told different things. So like I was seeing so many different doctors, whether it was my neurologist or my athletic trainer or my primary, and a lot of them had different things to say. Like some of them were like, "Well, you don't play a contact sport." Like, I don't really know. And then some of them were like, "You may risk permanent brain damage if you don't have it already." So there was these different extremes just because it's so hard to understand still as an injury itself.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't place any blame on like the oversight that I was receiving. And I felt on the good days, like I felt like I was ready to drive. So it definitely was like a mutual decision and talked through and all those things. In hindsight, I look back and go, I should not have been like ready or able. But after 8 weeks, like you think when I was getting better, you just have good days and I mean, it was just such a weird process that like I felt better at the time, better enough. I was seeing clearly at that point. I was feeling back on track as far as whatever I needed to do to be okay for that. And I guess too, just like having medically retired 2 weeks before, like I had rested a while. I was out of school. Um, I don't know. So, but as far as like my team and the support there, I got a lot of support from my doctors, physicians, and school people, but my coaches just like did not handle it kindly at all. But that was kind of a whole different situation that was happening. So
Okay.
they did not
So
oversee it at all.
I really, really appreciate you giving me that clarity, and that's like, to me, context is everything. And it's like, so I wanted to really understand more than just the shorthand of how you came to where you were, and the thing that's interesting is that I had imagined somebody saying to you, "I'm sorry, Kelsey, your career is done. You can't play anymore." But that was a decision you made on your own. What was that process like? And was there like a light bulb moment, like, "Oh my God, I'm just not going to be able to do this anymore"?
Oh, so difficult. I think it's also difficult because it's framed and ultimately it is your decision. But when you're sitting in a doctor's office and they're telling you that I remember vividly sitting in my neurologist's office telling them that I was starting to stutter my words and I was starting to get really stressed about like my brain fog and cognitive abilities and my mood swings, and I was laying it all out there. And we were talking through like the decision to continue playing, and they were saying, well, like you don't play contact sport, but you've had a lot. And she was like, you might have like we don't know if you have permanent damage. We can't tell that just yet. And if you go back, you'll risk that again. And but then it's like kind of tossed up as your decision. But like it doesn't feel like I was so against the grain of like not wanting to quote unquote quit because I'm not a quitter and I've been through like so many more before and I could come back. But then when you're sitting there thinking I might not be the same sister, daughter, human being that I used to be if I continue to risk getting hit in the head. That's where the decision came from because my mood swings had gotten so severe, and even just my ability to like feel, I just was so apathetic, or I was
Mm.
really depressed, or I was mad. I'm not an angry person, but I would really get short or yell at my family members. And I just remember thinking like, I can't risk my quality of life for the rest of my life. Like I'm only 20. And like this isn't a decision. Like this is not a decision. Like this is so obvious, even though, and so I think it was really hard to have it be like quote unquote my decision, or when people sometimes say like, oh, um, when you quit, or like, are you quitting? And it just hurts so bad because you're like, when somebody tells you that you could be risking permanent brain damage, like it's not really, I don't think it's quitting. Like I think it's just making a decision, but
Yeah, yeah, well,
I
yeah,
don't
it's
know.
like a it's weird, it's in some ways it can be like a surrender, or
Mhm.
okay, I just like, I've gone down this path and I've hit the dead end, and it's like, it's not, how am I gonna continue on when and to me, it's, doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results is not like, it's not the best path to go down, and
Yes.
so, I think that you don't need me to support the conclusion that you came to, but I definitely can see how you could come to that conclusion.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's when you ask, like, was it a light bulb? It was abrupt and gradual at the same time. Like, I was in
Mhm.
denial for a little bit too of like, well, what if I got better? And I also think the dynamic of my team, I'm actually look back and I'm so grateful that it influenced how I was feeling as well, because my coaches and then some of my teammates went from being like some of the people, essentially my coaches, just it was not a good environment. They ended up getting let go the year later. We had like 23 girls that like left, got cut, transferred, or quit all in 3 years. Like we were
Mm.
just in an environment of walking on eggshells. People were like throwing bats, punching walls. Like it was just so chaotic and ridiculous. We were going into my junior year, and my coaches and I had a really good relationship up until that point. And essentially, we had half our team leave and we'd half our team coming back. And even just starting off, a lot of my teammates were starting to express to me that they were having some severe mental struggles, particularly like pertaining to our coach's behavior, and telling me things like, I'm not going to survive the fall if they keep treating us this way.
Hmm.
And so at the start of my junior year, which was the same semester I got injured, I ended up consulting with our psychologist and our trainer and asking them about what I should do. And they were like, please go to admin. We'll come with you. We see some serious problems. We will join you. So I go to admin, and then overnight my career changes because my coaches find out I go to admin. I was just asking for them to meet with players so that players could bring them information without having to like come and initiate it, because they were really scared to do so, like I was doing, which was honestly a good fear because then my coaches found out and they thought I was trying to get them fired. And like overnight, like that's when they just switched up on me and they didn't speak to me. They only stopped practice to yell at me in front of everybody. I was getting
W
extra hours practice, and that's when I got injured.
Well, that's what I was just
Um,
gonna say, is that was that
yeah.
were you, when you were doing the running on that day, was that just kind of like punishing you for daring to speak truth to power?
That's my take on it. That's how I feel about it, in my opinion, because a few weeks before even, like, I went to their office and asked them very directly, 'cause, I mean, if there's one thing I'm gonna be, it's direct and honest.
Mhm.
And I told them, like, that I'd gone to admin, that if they thought I needed to transfer or if we could talk this out and continue our good relationship from the 2 years before. And they straight up told me, they were like, "Kelsey, you're projecting, like, you're having an attitude problem. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Like, you're still gonna start. We still love you, but, like, you're just projecting. I don't know why you're making things up in your head." Like, just so then to me, I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep my head down. I'm going to stay at the school I committed to. I love this school. I'm going to keep like fighting for it. They know that I'm trying to make this environment better, but then continually, like they just had me running and they had me doing things that other people weren't having to do. And so that day, everybody gets subbed out except for me. I'm running and I'm bleeding from sliding and all these things. And I get hit and my coach claps and is like, good job. And the very next morning, they called me into their office at 8 a.m. and it was just, they were definitely like utilizing some of my former injuries of like, well, Kelsey, like we were more scared than you probably even were. Like you've had so many now. Like, I don't know. And then basically, as I was trying to recover, I had made the decision pretty immediately in my mind that I couldn't play, but I was like staying on the team because I really cared about my teammates. And then about 6 weeks later, my coaches met with a group of my teammates that like I had been sisters with for 3 years. Like we spent every day together, we had every meal together. Like during COVID, we were like hip to hip for three
Mhm.
years. And this group of teammates, the very next day, they called me and were just completely cursing me out about how I should be back by now. And I looked fine. And people recover from concussions all the time. I was being selfish. And so I hold this like team meeting, and a group of my teammates is just like totally like bashing me and telling me how selfish I am, even though I explained to them exactly where I am, what I was going through, what was happening, was very upfront about. These are the same teammates that were like crying in my apartment, begging me to go to administration a few weeks before, like hugging me 3 days before, telling me how much they loved me. They were always here for me. Like it was just this crazy switch up. And then a group of teammates that were totally quiet because they were just really, they didn't want to speak up because they were going to get, I don't know, punished. And then a small group that was really supportive. And the weight of feeling like I was still staying for people and like this place and this cause that I'd put so much effort into, but it was just continuing to weigh me down. I was losing a ton of weight. Wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating. And at that point I was like, I can't recover in an environment like this. And even if I came back, like these people just have no regard. At the time, I
So
obviously feel a little bit stronger about it now, but at the time I
I
was like,
well,
"Ah,
I
I'm
wanted to
terrible."
ask you I wanted to ask you about this, and I really wanna ask you about this, but I also wanna move on to post this
Oh,
and kind of
yes.
like talk about the journey from there. But do you do you ascribe the environment to individuals or to overall themes and attitudes? Was the indifference of the coaching staff because like they always say that the fish rots from the head down.
Mm.
Was it problem with head coach and that sort of permeated down through the coaching staff? Was it in a competitive collegiate environment, you have to just be like, we've got to win at all costs? Was it, that's kind of like the binary of it. Was it one of those? Was it something else that I'm not bright enough to even figure out to ask
No,
you?
it was collective. Like, even when I arrived to campus my freshman year, like, our idea of accountability was very much like we had seniors that would just totally, like, ream you out and yell at you for things, and, like, and our coaches encouraged that, like, that was accountability. And at the
Mm,
time, even for me, I was like, "Well, yeah, that's D1 ball, it's Power 5, like, let's just head down through it and keep going. It's not my how I would deliver it, but okay." And so we just kinda bought into some things, like, here and there of holding each other accountable was calling people out and using personal information and targeting people personally, and girls would make fun of each other, and it just, like there was, like, little cracks in it, but when I got there, I was like, "This is just hard, like, I'm down for it, we're gonna make this team better." I was always just trying to, like, make it good and positive, and my coaches, like, had good intentions. I think that we had a good relationship from the start. I think there was always cracks, and then when obviously people really start to show, like, their genuine values when there's friction and when there's challenge, and so the more challenges we started to face or the more friction we started to face, we just had a collective, energy and environment that was caused by multiple individuals who I think had a poor understanding of what genuine like safe and supportive environments look like, because there was just a lot of double standards or broken
mm,
trust or genuinely like I think throwing and punching and hitting things is like not really the most acceptable display of behavior for a team, and that was like
mhm,
encouraged, so it was like very odd. I think so it's like a collective. Definitely our head coaches didn't do a great job of setting that tone. So I think it started with them for sure, but it also definitely played into just other people on our team and how it was kind of a groupthink
mhm.
environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's it's funny having been in the military, there's sort of like the accepted things that are allowed over like through a hierarchy, and it's like and like I never understood Like if one day I'm here and then I get elevated to here, once I'm here, that doesn't give me the right to feel superior to the people that are right where I was yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's sort of a fascinating thing, but one of the things that I've really, really examined a lot, and I examine this in myself all the time, there is something in us, and whether it's the competitive spirit or what, that does really like the idea of being superior to our fellow man or woman or that person next door or that guy that we just passed on the interstate. Like there's something about that without examining it that really does appeal. It's sort of like a
Mhm.
really easy thing to sort of fall into. And it's like, fortunately, I got to a point of self-honesty where it's like, yeah, but I'm not better than anybody else. You
Mhm.
know, I might
Yeah.
on a given day, I might be okay, but it's like I'm certainly certainly not a superior human being to anyone.
Yeah.
And that's the
Yeah.
thing that just that offends me, you know? So,
Mhm.
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I wanna, like, get to your continued questions, but I think that's even where I try to apply so much of what I, like, speak about in terms of, like, beyond labels. Like, I just don't see people that are starting or not starting or celebrities or non-celebrities. Like, I just when you really have a lens of, like, all of us are people, I
Mhm.
think it just makes the world, I don't know, more rich and easier to connect with. People just wanna be seen as people.
Well, and it's interesting because I think that that's sort of like the theme that though you and I come from such disparate backgrounds and stories and all of that, I think that's sort of like the theme that kind of connects us and makes us
Mhm.
friends is that we both kind of we've had our successes and we've had our opposite of successes, but it's like we don't go around looking for like achievement for me is kind of like my own personal growth. That's what I'm
Yeah.
after.
Yeah.
And that doesn't come to the exclusion of anybody else or feeling superior to anyone. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So my next question, the one I was thinking is, how did you how did you measure progress in your recovery from these injuries?
That's such a phenomenal question. I measured it through journaling, I would say,
Mm.
not intentionally, because especially it's interesting when you're going through a concussion, they tell you to keep a journal of your symptoms or they tell you to keep a log because that's the only way that when you go to the doctor, they can really know how you're feeling. So I was supposed to rate my pain from 1 to 10, or rate these symptoms. And it was very easy when I was going to the athletic trainer. They have this form, you fill in the bubbles, you get your score. But when I left athletics, like I didn't have those forms anymore. And so I was supposed to keep it on my phone. Well, the other part of recovering from a concussion is like I'm disorganized. I'm not keeping on track with any tasks. Like, no way is a journal happening every day. So I remembered it sometimes, and then I'd go to the doctor and have like 2 or 3 entries. But I kept a written journal every day, and I also keep a digital journal. So I've been keeping a video journal since 2019. So for
Mm.
about, oh my goodness, 7 years now. And I didn't see the progress I was making at the time. But then the more, like, each day went by, I could look back at some of the things that I wrote or some of the things that I was saying on video. So, like, for example, a lot of my struggle when I first had the injuries is I would, like, be writing and then my hand would just, like, kinda scribble out, and I would just, like, have these, like, handshakes, and I would just scribble all over the page. It was really weird. Or, like, I couldn't write for very long, and so you can see, like, how scattered my thoughts and my words were and how short my sentences were, and then you almost just see, like, scribbles. And when I finally was able to drive, I was going to work, and I would cry on my way to work because I was coaching softball, and I was really sad because I was coaching softball. And I remember, like, the first day that I put on a song in the car, and it's usually a song that I would kinda cry to, and I was singing to it, and I caught myself singing to it, and I thought, "Oh my gosh, like, I'm making progress." Like, I'm singing in the car to a song that I was used to cry to. Like, this is good. Or it was all very qualitative. Like, I was on my video journal and I could look back at it right even now and now in 2026, and I call it self check-in. So I see myself, I'm like, self check-in, here's how I'm feeling today, here's what's happening. And so I didn't mean for it to be like a progress tracking, but by the time I was 6 months out, 7 months out, 8 months out, I was tracking progress through like the journal that I was keeping, both written and video, even when I didn't want to, because I was really hoping that I'd be able to look back and be like, "Oh my god, I've come so far. I'm gonna keep going." And then when I was like halfway through my recovery, I was able to look back at the start and think, "Okay, I've recovered." I'm noticing myself being able to withstand like lights. Like the first you don't notice it at the time, but then you go, "Oh my gosh, I used to get headaches from these lights." Or being able to listen to a song in the car on a regular volume because it's not
Mm,
bothering me anymore. Or my family, like when they asked me something, I didn't impulsively respond. I thought about it again and I had like time to think instead of just like spitting out words. And so it's very intangible progress
mm.
tracking.
It's funny because I was just thinking about how would be a valuable tool for almost anyone, to like continually check in with yourself, like, oh, this is where I am today, not in a like obsessive, like, but it just in a like, oh, because I think that a lot of times our day to day just kind of becomes this, and we really really can lose the forest for the trees. And
Mhm.
and I think that, the idea of having whatever, for whatever way works with you, whether it be a video check-in or journaling, or checking in with a friend, or whatever, but just being able to measure, oh, yeah, I'm not, like, I think, forgive me if I go off on a tangent here.
No, please.
I think that it's really easy to get feeling down and just assume, okay, this is how it will be forever.
Mhm.
I feel like crap right now, and so I will feel like crap forever. It will never ever change, and all of that. And I think that that's a part of the human condition that happens. I think it can also happen in inverse, that we like when we're doing great, we think, oh my God, this is the new reality. I'm going to be happy like this forever. And it's like, well, no, there's ups and there's downs, and all of that. And to be able to, like, the tool that I use all the time is to just remind myself that everything is temporary. That it's like, if I'm
Mm.
feeling great today, that's temporary. If I'm feeling like crap today, that's temporary. And
Yeah.
just sort of, but just have enough consciousness to remember, oh, wait a minute, yesterday I thought that great feeling was going to last forever, and it didn't. And yesterday, or the day before that, I thought that crap feeling was going to be forever, and that didn't last. And
Mhm.
so, being able to check in with oneself, I think, is really really valuable. So.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I think when you've been through things like that before, where you know you're just, like, in the period of, like, allowing time to pass,
Mhm.
like, I just like, time really does heal, right? It
Mhm.
depending on how we and even too, like, I was reflecting on that feeling that you have when it's, like, you almost feel like the shoe is always gonna drop, and
Mhm.
it's, like, the loop I can think about it when other things that are hard happen in my life, and you think, "Oh my god, it always comes back to something hard." Or I can think of it as like, okay, it always comes back to something like, I always come back to a good joyful feeling at some point. And so
Mhm.
which one does it always come back to? You could like it's both because it continues to come in waves, but trying to not think of it as something bad always ends up coming up, like the shoe always ends up dropping because at the same time, like something else always usually ends up coming up behind it in
Mhm.
whatever time and you get through it. And so like reversing what the default is and what it's going to come back to is kind of helpful. So I
Yeah,
like that
and
you
and
said
just
that.
kind of, as my friend Bobby says all the time, trusting that there's a process, and just trusting the process,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
and trying to do that without thinking that everything is the be all and end all.
Mhm.
That's just kind of like, one of the only advantages to being ancient is that I have enough experience of having gone through a million different things in my life, and being like, oh yeah, okay, it's all just been a process. It's all brought me to right here. So.
Did you say being ancient? You're not
Yes.
ancient. Oh my gosh.
I was wondering if you were going to catch
It took me a minute. Oh my gosh. No.
that. So I wanted to turn then to how did, and I'm sure that there are a million different stories and anecdotes that you can tell me about the process of recovery, but eventually NC State approached you to do the commencement address that kind of put you into a different level and all of that. How did they approach you? What were did you think, are you crazy? There's no way. And then how did you prepare yourself to do that?
Yeah, so actually they did not approach me. It was an application.
Ah.
So NC State, very cool. They allow undergraduate students to apply. And I remember you get a lot of emails from the university. I was sitting on the floor at my mom's house and it was like midnight. I was writing a paper and I got the email to apply. And I had seen it a few days before and I thought about it. And then I just was like, you know what? Maybe like I want this to mean something. And I also really felt like when I genuinely share like the mindset that like healed and like changing the way I saw and spoke about others, like that was just all truth. And I thought,
Mhm.
how cool would it be to maybe apply for this? And then kind of around the same time, I found out that my family was coming, but they were only coming to the big commencement. Some of them couldn't make it to the small ceremony. And I thought, well, what a cool way to honor them. Like they really helped see me through. Like I wouldn't have finished my education at all without them. Like they were all so supportive and like how cool would it be to honor the people that like led me to finish school. And so I ended up just applying and basically I wrote out the entire speech.
Mhm.
And then I sat on my floor. I still have the video. I still have braces at the time. I was in a t-shirt. I was sitting on my floor. You can see my couch in the back. And I recorded it in 2 takes, the whole speech, the one that you hear on the, commencement, and then I sent it in. And then a few weeks later, I got a call from the school, and they said, like, they had had the most applicants, and they chose me. And I was like, "Oh my goodness." Like, I was shocked. I was actually working at my internship at the time. I was working at an equine therapy farm, and I was sitting there, and I thought, "I don't know if I can say yes." Because this is a lot of people and this is a big event and I've never done this before. I
Mhm.
wanna make sure it's done well, and I just wasn't even sure if I should say yes, like, out of literal respect for the school.
Mhm.
But they were like, "We really loved your speech, and, like, we would really love for you to do it," and so I accepted. And then in preparing for it, they assigned to me a speech coach from the communications department,
Mm.
and she helped me in how I was gonna deliver it and just getting ready to speak in front of that many people. But I had already written the speech and, like, wrote the entire thing before I even applied. So, all of that just kinda came from this quiet process of me sitting in my room late at night writing it out.
So I'm very curious, how many times whilst you were writing it because this is my thought process whenever I'm
Yeah.
preparing to do a public talk or whatever. I always have this thought like, you've got a lot of nerve thinking you've got something to say.
Yes.
Did you go through that?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely.
Do you still?
Yeah. I absolutely do. I think I am much quicker at learning how to, like, converse with myself
Mhm.
to almost now, like, I think having shared my story and my thoughts, and when I share them now and people are genuinely touched by it or it actually brings them hope, now I tell myself, like, "What nerve do you have to have been given this story and these resources and this support and not share it?" Like,
Exactly.
when it's helping people, and so now I don't feel that way as much because I almost feel like when I sit in the quiet, I'm like, I have a, like, purpose, and I have something that can be shared and help people, like, why would I be sitting on that just out of my own fear? Like, what nerve do I have putting my fear above helping other people? But at the time, oh my goodness, and especially with commencement speeches, I thought, what if I don't know, like, is this gonna be too cheesy, or are people like yeah, like, what nerve do I have to say all these things? And it started out I also just wanted to make sure right, so my experience with athletics and all of these things was still so raw, like, it had only been a year. And I remember very deliberately having to like, I started out and it was 10 pages, and I whittled my way through of like, how do I make sure that this is not about me and like me using a platform to talk about me, but like genuinely sharing with people. Like, I'd gotten to a point where I'd found so much joy removed from doing, and I was now like talking to my peers and my friends who were really stressed about like their labels and like getting caught up in what they were doing or their GPAs or where they were going next. And I like I saw like a connection to all the people that I would be speaking to. And so I at least think that I had some general comfort in knowing that it was going to be a relatable message no matter what people were
Mhm.
in that room going through. Like, I also knew very deliberately that I didn't want it to just be for the students. Like, there's so many people there that
I
are
was
there to
just gonna
support the
commend you
students.
on that. I was because I thought
Oh,
I watched it again this morning, and I think that that's one of the things you didn't just connect with the students, you connected with everybody in the room, and I think that that's just really commendable. You
oh,
know,
thank you.
it was a really important and valuable part of it. So, and you could just see in the dean standing behind you when you finished and he stood up, you could just see kind of like him radiating pride in that you were representing the university. I could
Oh,
just sort of
thank
see
you.
that from the expression on his face and all of that. So,
Oh, well, thank you. I really appreciate that.
um, so um, how did that lead to speaking, like to getting asked to speak at other times? What's kind of like the trajectory towards that?
Yeah, well, the month after that was quiet. It went really well. It was super fun. Then I went to watch my twin brother graduate, and it wasn't until June, so a month later, that I was seeing some graduation speeches on TikTok. And I started asking my friends and family, like, "Do you think I should post mine? Like, should I put mine up there?" I had never posted a TikTok before.
Mhm.
And they were like, "Yeah, you should totally do it." And I remember I did it at night before I went to bed because I was so scared, right? The internet,
Mhm.
it was a nervy place. And then I posted it, and then for the next 2 to 3 weeks was when things just boomed. Like, I woke up every morning to floods of messages and notifications, and I at the time, I was it was the summer, I was taking a gap year, so I responded to everyone. Like, I would spend the day, like, going, and in my mind, I thought, "Oh my gosh, if people are taking the time to comment, like, I wanna take the time to respond back." And then it
Mhm.
got so overwhelming because it was thousands and thousands, and when I started getting busy, it was like, I can't do it anymore, but for the first 2 to 3 weeks, like, I spent hours just responding to every person that reached out to me, whether it was a comment or a direct message. And so one of the comments was from a woman, her name is Sunny from the University of Oklahoma. And it
Mhm.
was just a comment on the TikTok among the 10,000 that are there. And she was like, "Would love for you to come speak to my class one day." And I responded and was like, "I would love that. Like, let's get in touch." And we did. And then that was like my first like contract that I signed to go speak to the University of Oklahoma later that year. And one of them was a Facebook message from a guy who, fantastic. We still keep in touch. He is the CEO of a bank in Nebraska. And it was just a Facebook message that he asked if I could come speak at his company's event happening in December. And so just one by one, it was the messages and then these comments that just paired up really nicely with the fact that I'd posted it. And then I had the time to like go through every single one that people were sharing. And because I was responding, like, one, I think it was generating more. And two, I started getting invited to speak and I was already taking a gap year to really solidify what I wanted to do next. And yeah, so it was like Facebook messages. I spoke to like different companies, schools, like summer camps, like conferences. I mean, it was like this whole range, simply from Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
Nice.
And that's when I started to build a website and knew that it was something that I wanted to continue to do, even though I was planning on going back to school, which I did. But kind of in that meantime, everything that I've done so far has come from an inquiry on social media.
Mhm.
So my biggest events, my smallest events, like have all come from just messages. And now I'm actually at the point where I finally finished up school. I recognized that I still love speaking. I thought that maybe the virality would dwindle down, but I've continued to have opportunities and I love it. So all
Now,
of it has just been, messages.
now, do you at this point do you have like representation? Do you do you have like can you offload any of that and just concentrate more on doing the actual work you're doing, or do you still have to do all of the interacting with everybody to get to
I
set
do all
things
of
up?
it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I do not have a representation. I would love that one day. That would definitely be the goal. I think it's been an interesting time this year because I really committed to going back to school. And I was at this crossroads when I first went viral of right, I was like freshly 21. And I thought, should I lean into this and start just content creating? But it just didn't feel right for me personally. Like I knew even if I was gonna go speak, like I really want the things that I say about mental health and even just this concept, like, is that translatable across multiple people, like based on really important like science and other things, or is it something that only helped me? Like I just wanted to understand, like I'm just somebody that really values that. And so I went back to school, and so some of that went on the shelf, and so I didn't post as much, and I also just didn't wanna get on the hamster wheel when I wasn't ready because I could
Hmm.
feel the urgency. Like, the moment I started posting and people were like, "Share more, tell me more," I felt this, like, personal attachment to it. Now I'm at a point that I don't, and I feel like I can create content, if you will, that's way more authentic because I'm so much more grounded in wanting to share it because I don't need it or I don't need to share it, but I just really want to share things that I've now matured and believe in. And so now I have the time to start continuing to build that business and really lean into it full time. Now that I've finished my education, I really took the time to discern what is that gonna look like for me to become more of a public voice with the things that I want to share and have to share, now that I'm doing it out of a groundedness instead of an urgency to keep up with something that started that I wasn't ready for.
Oh, I think that's a great answer. And it like one of the things I have kind of a love-hate relationship with social media because in spite of myself, in spite of knowing that it's not the most important thing, what I like if I post something, it's like, "Oh, who's responded to it? Who's liked it? Who's" and it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know that it's the healthiest thing for me to get so invested in that. I wanna say things, but I don't wanna say things for my own aggrandizement. I wanna say things because I want people to feel genuinely uplifted by them.
Mhm.
And it's funny what I've been doing recently. um, I've been just reaching out to people one on one, and like there's a friend that I have that I hadn't heard from for a while, and I just rang her up this week and said, "Hey, what's going on with you?" And we ended up talking for about an hour, and she texted me later on and was like, "Oh my god, that conversation was so helpful to me." And it's I just have to trust. I just have to trust that whomever I'm supposed to reach will
Mhm.
will stumble across my path, and then I have to make myself available to share what it is that I have to share, as
Yeah.
opposed to like branding myself like, oh, well, this is Steve, he does blah, that kind of thing. So,
Yeah. Absolutely. I think we so connect in that, like, so aligned in that way. Because
mhm,
I love that you share that because, yeah, even, like, right, in your photography or whatever it is that you like, you social media is so cool because it's a cool tool to connect people. Um, but yeah, in very similar fashion, I found that I wanna make sure that I am sharing things out of genuine intention, not for attention. Um, and really, yeah, making sure that it's something that people I want people to be uplifted by it, and I wanna give it the time it deserves before I put it out there, um, and not jump on just branding for branding's sake and being like a whole personal brand. Like, I just want it to be a tool to invite people to, like, connect and make it genuine, not so much just put things out there for,
right,
like, the growth.
right, right. And just the fact that like what I like about you is the maturity that you have to be able to have that discernment. It's very easy to sort of just get you know reeled in and be like, well, this is just what everybody's doing. Well, I have to do it too. And I think that you have a level of maturity that's well beyond your years. So,
Oh, thank you.
um, so what are I think I have two more questions that are really important to me.
Yeah.
What have been the biggest obstacles that you faced in like in this part of your journeys? Like, what are the obstacles that you really struggle with right now?
That's a fantastic question. The obstacles that I really struggle with right now, I think related to what we just talked about. Sometimes I struggle with wondering if going inward and not quote unquote capitalizing on that time that I went viral, was that a mistake? Like was me going back to school just me chasing labels, or was it me being too scared to output? But I have to remind myself, like, no, because I check in with that pretty often of like genuinely wanting to get my education, and but I guess feeling like I'm quote unquote behind from where I could have been if I
Mm,
had leaned into it at the time, or if I had
mhm,
started posting consistently every day in 2023, where might I be? And so I struggle with really reminding myself that I made those choices intentionally, and however they're supposed to turn out, they're supposed to turn out. I didn't miss anything because I made a grounded decision, and I'm glad I didn't lose myself in it. But I struggle with it sometimes,
mhm.
thinking like, did I miss out on an opportunity that I should have leaned into? And am I behind now because of it? Um, I struggle with the idea of now wanting to build my speaking business and wanting to make sure that I'm authentic and using my voice, but also getting somewhere where I'm not just waiting for messages to come in, like I'm going and I'm reaching out to events or I'm reaching out to places and wanting to offer something because I know I have value, versus feeling like it's just a nerve-wracking wall to get over, to go not pitch yourself, but like offer the services that you provide, and really getting into a space where I feel confident to do that and wanting
Oh,
to do that.
I can tell you that I have such a struggle with so I'm going to England for a week at the end of the month, and I really wanna do at least one talk there. I'm already supposed to go on a podcast whilst I'm there. That's one of the purposes for going over. But,
Oh, that's awesome.
but I really would like to do a talk, and I've reached out to people, and it's such a going back to the thing that I was saying before, "Oh, you've got a lot of audacity thinking that you've got something to say to these people in another country about, about your career and so on and so forth." But it's like, well, no, I have to remember that I have value. I have to remember the that I'm not sharing just to say, hey, look how cool I am. Look how cool my life has been. But that, I mean, to me and several times in both reading the content that's on your website and hearing you talk, one of the things that you talk about a lot is about curiosity. And the talk that
Mhm.
I am giving right now is about how curiosity has led to the most important photographs that I've taken in my career. Rarely has it been specifically like, okay, here's a job to go and do this. It's more like,
Yeah.
oh, what's down that street there? And I think that curiosity is just kind of an essential ingredient to be a successful human being.
Mhm.
And so, it's but I can totally identify with the idea that it's like, "Oh, I have to go out and sell myself to people."
Yeah.
I could sell people on the idea of having Kelsey come and speak, and you can have people have Steve come and
Yeah,
speak.
to have Steven come and speak and, like, talk about you and to hype you up. Exactly, 100%. It's so much easier and more natural to do that
Right.
than to step in and do it for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. So the last question that I have that's on my list, um is how important do you think that it is, do you feel that it is for a person to have a personal philosophy? And
Mm.
do you and like, can you see sort of like the trajectory of your own personal philosophy? Do you and all of that? So that's a good question to wrap up with.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think it's important for people to have a personal philosophy because I think the things that we learn in life continue to get tested and
Mm,
we'll relearn them again and again. And so, me having this philosophy and resolution that I committed to during a time that it was just essential for me to recover and build a new identity of describing people by their attitude and how they treat others and what makes them unique has evolved over time now that my circumstances are wildly different. But I have to check in with myself and ask, like, is this something that I'm continuing to live by? Is this something where when I don't feel accomplished because I didn't do as much as I wanted to at the end of the day, do I go through my list and go, yeah, but how was my attitude? How am I treating other people? Or in the middle of a day, like, am I showing up and being the person that I want to be? And continuing to check in with that, I think it keeps you on a path. I think it helps you reconnect with your why for doing things. It
mm,
reconnects you with the person that you want to be. Like, as I continue just to strive to be the best version of myself, having that philosophy keeps me on course to do that. And so I do. I think it's really important for people to find whatever that is for them and to go deep and really figure out whatever that philosophy might be or that saying or that quote that keeps them grounded in the person they want to be. They're going to have different times in their life where that's going to get challenged or it's going to kind of fade away because there's been so much time since, like, I don't need it as desperately as I needed it during a hard time, but I still have to apply it to, like, stay on track for who I want to be and being authentic to what I speak about or what was relevant to me at the time, even though it's wildly different now. Um, so yeah, I think it's really important. I also just think it gives purpose. Like for me, a lot of it comes from purpose and feeling aligned with what I say and the kind of person that I try to I guess the kind of person I just try to be aligned so that people when they see the way that I act and I speak, like that's really who I am. It's not just
mhm.
me saying it. And so I think for people to have a personal philosophy to live by keeps them should keep them grounded and keep them on course and give them a reason to do the things that they wanna do and to be the person they wanna be. So I think everybody should have that.
Great answer. I think that for me, knowing like realizing that it's changed and it's become more nuanced over years and stuff like that. One of the things that's really, really important to me is that it's like, okay, if an aspect of my philosophy no longer serves me, then that's fine. That doesn't
Mhm.
like my philosophy doesn't have to be my identity and vice versa. And so it's like that allows me, it sort of gives me a lot of permission to grow and to say, okay, well, when I was younger, I thought this and now it's more developed and more nuanced and and that part of it fell away and this part of it is stronger and so on and so
Yeah.
forth. So
I
I
was
think
about to ask you if it had changed for you over time.
it is it's changed, but and there are definitely are things that have fallen away, but other things that have just become stronger and more deeply committed, and the things that you and I both resonate with. The I was talking to somebody who works for a food bank the other day, and I was telling her about and like one of the things that resonates with both with you and I is the idea of volunteer work. When I lived in Los Angeles, I did volunteer work for an organization called the Frontline Foundation. And one time I was speaking to Ray Castellani, who was the founder of this really lovely man. And I said, so and his what their mission was serving meals to homeless people on Skid Row in LA. And I said to him, I said, Ray, how long have you been feeding people on Skid Row? And he stopped me and he said, Steve, cattle you feed, human beings you serve. And I was
Wow.
like, oh my God. And that just that one sentence rocked my world. And and it's something that I go back to again and again and again. My purpose for being here is to serve. And
Yeah.
whether it's serving in the form of a meal or serving in the form of showing up for somebody or whatever. But I I think about Ray all the time, and just that little tiny jewel. And I was able to share that with my friend the other day when I was speaking to her. But it's like human beings, we're here to serve each other. That's
Yeah. Oh,
that's the kind of the basis of my whole philosophy.
yeah. No, that's really, yeah, but I think, right, like you said, like, your philosophy is to serve, and you've done that through different things in your life, and
Hmm.
it's looked different, but that has stayed kind of to the core, or you allowed it to kind of get enhanced or strengthened by words from other people or experiences with other people.
Hmm.
That's so interesting. Stephen, thank you so much. I so appreciate just like the thoughtful questions, and even just when we wrapped up our interview, when you were on the podcast on episode 4, which everyone should go listen to, afterwards you just talked about curiosity, like you being so curious as to offer and ask, would you ever want to be interviewed on your own podcast? And I have some questions for you. And I think so rarely does that happen. And your curiosity and genuine care for other human beings really shines through and is so cool, and something that I like continue to want to emulate every time that we speak. So thank you so much for being willing to even kind of hop on and take the ropes of what's supposed to be my hosting podcast, and just even kind of allowing that curiosity to be both ways is so cool. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. One of the things that in speaking to in speaking to a lot of times like if I'm talking to a doctor or if I'm talking to an auto mechanic or whatever, a lot of times I'll at the end say, is there a question that I should be asking that I haven't? So Kelsey, is there a question that I should be asking you that you were like thinking, oh boy, I'm going to get to explore this that I didn't get to?
Oh, honestly, no. I feel like you really exceeded my expectations in allowing me to talk about like my heroes and people that I care about.
Okay.
A little bit of softball. I wanted to be able to expand on that story a little bit. I usually keep it nice and concise, so being able to share that was great.
Hmm.
Um, there is nothing I can think of that you didn't already hit that I would want to explore. But again, like I've said too, this forum is always open for us to maybe come back to. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you would
No,
like to close with?
this is about you, but I would say that your next mission has to be to write a book. I don't know if you've started yet, but
I'm glad you asked. Wait, this is a good question. I have been wanting to write a book since like before even my injury happened. Like I've written out different things and it's changed over time. And then obviously I really got the kick to do it. It has been sitting in my Google Drafts for a couple years now.
mhm.
And this year it's like really on my list and my docket to like sit and do it. And I'm very encouraged by you saying that because obviously, right, there's times when you sit and you do labor and work that nobody is seeing and there's no forward progress marker and you think like, what in the world? But the book is something that was really thinking about trying to complete this year. Um,
Okay,
so
well,
yes.
I will put in a pitch to do your author photo. Um,
Oh,
it's
thank you. Of course.
it's funny, last year I shot 3 different book covers for different authors, and the most recent one was really fun. It was a memoir for this man, and we had a really interesting concept, and I'm very excited for that to come out. But, and it's not only for my own selfish reasons that I want you to do a book. I think that you have a lot to say, and I think that the vehicle of exploring things through the written word it's different, and then it gives you additional credibility for your speaking gigs and stuff like that, and gives
Hmm.
you something that people can take away with them. So I think there are
Yeah.
multiple reasons for you to explore that, and I think that you will write an outstanding book. So
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for asking that. And thank you.
yeah,
I really appreciate that. So Yeah. You'll be my first call for an author photo when I finish it. And I'll
Okay.
try to speed up the timeline now.
Do you have a title?
I was thinking of calling it Life Beyond Labels.
Mhm.
Something around that. I don't know. Do you have any recommendations for me on a
I
title?
like that. I like that. If something pops into my head, I'll send you a text message, but I think that works.
I think it's cool that I did wait. I think over time it's evolved from like originally I wanted to like share my story, and it's evolved into obviously wanting to share my story in a way that's like helpful to that message. But then also like if I was genuinely writing a book to help people live, not just beyond labels as far as like what you do for work, but even just like limitations that get placed on us of like what we were just talking about, like you're too quiet, and then thinking that that's limiting you for your life, or labeling our experiences. Like when we
Mhm.
go through something that makes us feel replaceable or discarded, like how does one deal with that? And so I'm writing it right now. I've kind of like scratched everything and restarted to write it from the lens of like what is genuinely, like you just said, like what is genuinely going to serve other people that are reading it, that isn't just me getting to outlet the things that have happened to me in my life, but like genuinely making sure everything is intentional and with purpose. So that's my
That
hope with it.
that's so interesting because we talked about in our interview, we talked about my experience of working with Michael, and people are always like, "Oh, you've got to write a book about that. You've got to write a book about that." And it's like, okay, well, that was my whole experience of working with Michael was over a period of 4.5 years. And my whole career is now 35, coming up on 36 years.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, that's such a little tiny segment of it. I don't mind that being a chapter, but I also want to talk about working for the Frontline Foundation with great Ray Castellani and
Yeah.
the things that I learned in that, the things that I learned just in a multitude of different ways, because it's just like that's all a part of, they all are intertwined with each other, but it's like, no, this is the real who I am, not just the guy that got to work for the hugest celebrity in the world for a few years of his life. That's
Yeah.
that's not insignificant, but it's like that's not the most significant thing about my life. So
That's not the core piece. Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. And I think that that's by you giving yourself time. And the thing is that this might be the first of many books that you write, but it's like by giving yourself time to sort of coalesce your experiences from athlete to who you are right now, I think that that's a really, really valuable thing to do. So
Oh,
I think
thank
you're
you.
ready.
I feel ready. I feel like now I'm ready. So thank you.
Excellent. Excellent.
Oh,
Well, thank
well,
you.
perfect. Yeah, thank you so much again. And thank you all so much for listening to Life Beyond Labels. We are so glad that you're here. Stephen, thanks again for coming back. It is always so wonderful to have you
It was my pleasure.
for just wonderful conversations. And I'm sure once again, this will not be the last. So thank you all for listening, and we hope you will join us next episode.
Thank you. Bye-bye.